My name is Robert. I am 48 years old and I live in a quaint little town in Oregon. For years, I had built a life centered around family and hard work, pouring every ounce of my effort into creating a comfortable environment for those I loved. My late son, Stephen, had been the light of my life, a joy I cherished every day. His sudden passing left an immense hole in my heart, but it was his wife, Jessica, who would soon teach me the true meaning of betrayal. During the funeral, while I wrestled with grief, I was surrounded by friends and family, paying respects and offering condolences. The atmosphere was thick with sorrow and disbelief. Amidst the somberness of the occasion, Jessica stood at the edge of the gathering, her demeanor cold and detached, as if she were merely waiting for her moment to strike. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, she too was grieving, wasn't she? But then, just as the service concluded, I heard her voice, icy and sharp like a knife cutting through the air. "Pack your bags." It hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was, mourning my son, and she was already thinking of moving on, considering our shared home nothing more than a possession she could toss aside. That was when everything began to unravel. The shock of her words echoed in my mind, igniting a blaze of anger that I had kept at bay. My son had loved her, had given her everything he could, and here she was, seemingly planning her escape even before his grave was filled. I could feel the resentment bubbling up, but I chose not to react. Instead, I buried my emotions, letting her words reverberate in silence. I needed to think. I needed to be strategic. The days that followed were filled with a surreal blend of grief and determination. I was numb, going through the motions of life, while inside I was planning. I began to notice the small things. Jessica's dismissive attitude toward our shared memories, her eagerness to leave the house we had all built together. The little looks she exchanged with her friends, the whispers about needing to start fresh. It was as if she didn't care about the life even Stephen had worked so hard to provide for her. I knew I had to prepare, to lay down the groundwork for my ultimate reveal. I started gathering evidence, finding every piece of paperwork related to our shared asset. I contacted a lawyer, penning down all the ways I could secure my position regarding our family home. It was intricate but necessary. Each meeting, I could sense the arrogance of Jessica and her allies growing. She believed she had the upper hand. They thought my grief had made me weak, that I was too shattered to think clearly about my next steps. Little did they know, the storm was brewing within me. During that time, I kept my cool. I spent hours at the local bank, changing the ownership details in regards to the house. I made sure that my name was firmly planted on the title, and with each signature I penned, I felt a wave of empowerment. The more I prepared, the more certain I became that I was on the right path. I changed the locks on the doors, knowing full well that Jessica might one day try to gain access to the home that held our memories. She continued flaunting her plans, constantly hinting at how she would need to make a life without Stephen, how selling our property would be a fresh start for her. I listened to this with a calm fury simmering inside. The day came to a head during a family gathering, an occasion where I had invited the close family to honor Stephen's memory one last time in our safe haven. That day, the air was thick with unease. I sensed a change within myself, a clarity that had emerged amid the chaos of grief. Jessica arrived, looking prepared to disrupt the fragile peace, her objective firmly in her sights. Towards the end of the evening, as the last flicker of daylight faded, I stood up. In that moment, I could see the faces of my family, curious, concerned, unaware of the depths of my knowledge or the plans I had set in motion. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. "Jessica," I began, my voice steady and calm, "you have made your intentions clear about leaving this home behind, and I don't think you've considered the consequences of your actions." Silence enveloped the room, the air thickening with tension as I continued. "I have sold the house. The transfer happened while you were busy plotting your escape." As the realization hit, Jessica's face turned pale. The color drained from her cheeks, replaced by disbelief. "You can't be serious," she shrieked, stuttering over her words. "This is our house." Her arrogance had blinded her, and now, shattered by the revelation, her heart raced as quickly as my satisfaction grew. My family looked around in shock, trying to grasp the unfolding situation, and I could see my brother whispering in shock to my sister. The tension in the room was palpable as I revealed the details: the title transfer, the new owners, the closing date. Jessica's friends began to back away, recognizing the raw emotion swelling within our family. "You think I would let you take everything Stephen worked for, everything we built together?" I continued, my voice unwavering as I watched her stumble through her words. "I am not the man you believed me to be. I may not have fought for Stephen's life, but I will fight for his legacy and the memories we created here." A few moments passed like an eternity. Silence filled the space until Jessica finally found her voice, though it was shaky. "You can't just do this," she screamed, her facade crumbling. "You are nothing without this house." "Perhaps," I said, allowing a smile of calm satisfaction to grace my face. "But this was not just about the house, was it? It's about loyalty and honor. It's about respecting the life Stephen built for you." With those final words hanging in the air like an unresolved chord, the reality of the evening settled in. Jessica's world was not only crumbling around her, it was exposing the rotting foundations of her disloyalty. As she stormed out of the front door, shouting obscenities, I could feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. The anger I had bottled up during the funeral, the betrayal I had endured, all morphed into a sense of triumph. Afterwards, the immediate fallout was swift. Friends and family rallied around me, extending their condolences for my loss, but also respect for how I had handled the situation with grace. Jessica's outburst during the gathering had adorned the family with a new truth. She was not the victim she portrayed. She had played her cards, miscalculating her power over the situation, and now she was exposed, a fragment of the woman she had pretended to be. Eviction notices flew towards her as chaos ensued in her world, and I could hardly contain my relief. Seeing her public shame unfold, watching her friends abandon her as her true nature was unearthed, was sweet justice. She had underestimated my resilience and the love I held for my son. In the end, it was an ironic twist of fate that came wrapped in the layers of death and betrayal. As I stood amidst the remnants of what our house had once meant, I thought about loyalty and the essence of family. I reminded myself that sometimes, acts of true justice do not require violence, but rather a strong sense of self and conviction. In reclaiming the space that had been so tainted by deceit, I honored Stephen's memory and reaffirmed my dignity. In peace, I learned that true strength isn't in the ability to retaliate, but rather in the capacity to rise anew, with love and pride intact. My name is Robert, and I am 48 years old, living in a quaint little town in Oregon. In the aftermath of the chaos Jessica had caused, I found myself amidst supportive family members who rallied around me, comforting me as I walked the delicate line between mourning my son and reclaiming my life. Yet every comforting word felt like a gentle reminder of the void Stephen had left behind. He had been my pride and joy, and to see his memory manipulated had ignited a fire within me that I did not know existed. I poured my energy into the house, redesigning the spaces with newfound purpose, reminding myself that each room I transformed was a way to honor Stephen's legacy. I dug through old photographs, sorting through smiles caught in frames and sharing stories with family about the life we had built together. Each retelling was bittersweet, but I felt a sense of healing washing over me as people shared similar stories of love and remembrance. Little did I know how much Jessica's arrogance would unravel in the days to come. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room, immersed in memories, my phone buzzed with an unexpected notification. I had received a message from a mutual acquaintance of Jessica's, someone I had never expected to hear from. The message told me Jessica was spreading lies about me, painting me as the villain in our situation. The mention felt like a dagger, mocking my efforts to cope and reinforce my son's memory. I felt a hand clench around my heart, but I steadied my breathing, telling myself that I would not allow her to paint my character with the same brush she had used to tarnish her own. I turned to my brother Michael, leaning on his shoulder as I recounted the message. Seeing the fire in his eyes reassured me that I had family on my side. Together, we embarked on a mission to confront the very foundation of Jessica's deceptive nature, knowing full well that her slip-ups would only hurt her in the long run. I penned down my next steps, fueled by the growing desire to expose her for who she truly was and prevent her from capitalizing on my grief. Our conversation sparked ideas. Michael suggested various avenues to navigate the legality of my home. Let us make sure she knows that this house belongs to its rightful owner, not to someone who would toss it aside like it was a mere possession. The more we talked, the more I felt a sense of purpose taking root within me. I decided to invite some of Stephen's closest friends over for a casual gathering, crafting an atmosphere of camaraderie to draw eyes and ears away from Jessica's narratives. I wanted to showcase the love that existed in this home, to fortify the bonds we all still had. As the day drew closer, I felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation brewing within me. I wanted to catch Jessica off guard, to see how her lies unraveled in front of those who truly cared about Stephen. I turned the gathering into a celebration of his life, decorated the banisters with photos, and prepared his favorite meals, hoping to breathe warmth back into a space that had been tainted by uncertainty and deceit. The day finally arrived, and as guests filtered in, their laughter and joyful memories started to weave together a tapestry of comfort around the grief. I kept an eye out for Jessica, knowing she would undoubtedly be lurking around, eager to capitalize on the attention of our guests. Although I felt a tremor of anxiety, I remained focused on my purpose, keeping a warm smile on my face. Jessica walked in just as I was recalling a funny story about when Stephen had gotten lost in a corn maze at a fall festival. I noticed her sneer as she headed straight for the punch bowl, casually mingling with my guests as if she were at home, a stark contrast to my determination. As the evening wore on, I caught her throwing glances at me, her smile forced as she faked laughs at stories she pretended to resonate with. I felt every ounce of her manipulation and insincerity as if it were a weight on my chest. In the midst of the laughter and joy, I felt enveloped by Stephen's spirit. It was almost palpable. As I moved closer to Jessica, I caught her eye and shot her a knowing look, one that bore a silent promise to her that my next move would be just as calculated as hers. The conversation shifted among the group, topics twisting and turning, and I knew it was time to act. I quietly gathered everyone's attention with the gentle clinking of my glass, feeling the thrill of anticipation course through my veins. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate Stephen," I began, my voice steady and calm. Everyone looked at me with warmth in their eyes, and I could see Jessica stiffening beside me. "I want to share a few things." Jessica's expression morphed into one of concern, and I watched as her facade began to crack. With each sentence I spoke, I felt my confidence growing, laying down the truth, the unwavering bond of love and loyalty that existed in this home. I ended by saying, "And despite the ups and downs we have faced, I want to assure you all that from this day onward, this home will always belong to me and the legacy Stephen left behind." The room fell silent, faces turning to Jessica, who could not hide her disbelief. "What do you mean, Robert?" she muttered, feigning confusion. I sensed the shift in the mood, the unmistakable tension that thickened the air. "You know exactly what I mean," I replied, a calm authority edging my tone. The expressions of those around us shifted from confusion to realization as they began to grasp the implications of my words. In light of all that has transpired, I have taken the necessary steps to ensure that the house is indeed mine, as I believe it should be, and I trust that everyone here understands the significance of honoring what Stephen held dear. Jessica's face turned a deep shade of red, a mixture of fury and embarrassment flooding her countenance. "You think this is over? You think you can just take everything from me?" she exclaimed. The raw emotion in her voice seemed to echo through the now silent living room as everyone awaited my response. "Jessica," I replied quietly, feeling the weight of my grief transform into a sense of purpose, "this is not about taking anything from you. This is about protecting what is rightfully mine, the memories, the love, and the legacy Stephen left for us all." I watched as my words struck a nerve, the tremor in her voice evident as she stammered through a barrage of threats. "I will see you in court. You can't just throw me out like this. We were married. You think this is going away?" I took a measured breath and smiled at the absurdity of her threats. You are welcome to pursue that path if you wish, but I suggest you reflect on what it means to soil your loyalty to someone who truly cared. With my heart unfurling with newfound strength, I felt liberated as I delivered that final blow. Jessica stumbled back, her friends whispering as her bravado crumbled under the weight of her own deceit, the room heavy with the shared weight of truth. The laughter and lightheartedness of the gathering transformed into a collective sense of understanding. Stephen's friends rallied around me, offering their support, reminding me of the love we had shared, and that the ties we had built were stronger together. As the gathering slowly dissipated, I felt the warmth of love enveloping me in a way I had not experienced since my son's death. The energy shifted dramatically, and I could see Jessica isolating herself from the group, her false bravado reduced to nothing as whispers about her true self began to spread. It was as if a cloak had been removed from the eyes of those who had once held her in high esteem. Later that night, I received a call from my attorney, updating me on the legal side of things. As she spoke, I could hear the triumph in her voice. We had already started moving forward with handling the eviction, and were prepared to ensure that Jessica faced not only the consequences of her actions, but also a swift fall from her high horse. I allowed the satisfaction to wash over me, knowing that justice was on my side. As I settled into bed that night, I reflected on the day. The house felt warm, its walls embracing the bittersweet memories of Stephen, secure in its new destiny. I clung tightly to those moments filled with love, gratitude seeping into my heart as I closed my eyes, and for the first time in a while, I slept soundly, knowing I had honored my son through rightful action. Days merged into weeks as I continued to live my life, but the reeling repercussions of Jessica's chaos were still unfolding. She attempted to mount a defense, but like every step she took to reclaim her world, my legal team was always 3 steps ahead. I could only smile at the irony of it all. The efforts she took to destroy my world had backfired magnificently. I watched as my once proud adversary spiraled into a whirlwind of financial and social chaos, a self-imposed exile created out of her own arrogance. Conversations swirled through the town regarding Jessica's faulty reputation, her bravado, and the whirlwind of disaster that followed in her wake, a stark reminder of her blatant disregard for the love and loyalty Stephen had held for both of us. I found myself connected to a network of people who deeply cared about Stephen and the legacy he left behind. They sought me out, bonding over grief and finding solace in shared memories. We shared dinners, cookouts, and gatherings made bright with laughter, the kind of life Stephen would have cherished, one he believed in. Whenever I thought of Jessica, a fleeting pang of pity brushed against my heart. Her tactics had failed, and now she was left with nothing but broken relationships and an empty vow. I realized now how much I had underestimated my own strength. With time, I learned the lessons embedded within the ashes of betrayal. I was not merely a wallet to be exploited or a man fraught with grief. I was Robert, a father devoted to honoring his son, revisiting the love we forged and building upon it as I moved forward with grace and resilience. Time passed, and I eventually received legal confirmation that the house was officially mine, free from any association to Jessica. It held memories that were too precious to be sullied by her actions. I had reclaimed more than just property. I had reclaimed the space where love once thrived and had determined to breathe new life into it in the spirit of Stephen. I envisioned transforming the backyard into a memorial garden, adorned with flowers and a bench where visitors could remember the joy he brought into our lives. I wanted a place where family could gather without the shadow of betrayal lying between us. The community embraced the idea, and before long, everyone contributed in their own way. Help poured in as neighbors donated time, money, and resources. I ordered stones engraved with Stephen's name and a few of his favorite quotes, a way to bring his spirit into the garden. Each stone laid felt like a step towards closure, the physical manifestation of the trust and love he had shared with us. As I stood in the garden one evening, watching the sun dip low in Oregon's horizon, the colors of dusk wrapping around me like a warm hug, I knew I had coming full circle. I learned resilience, A stronger man had emerged from the depths of betrayal. Jessica's existence remained a faint echo in the background, and as much as I felt a twinge of sadness for what had been lost, I embraced my journey with the wisdom life had gifted me. Each day, I dedicated time to tending to the garden, pouring my heart into nurturing each flower and tree. It became a sanctuary, a reminder that life can spring anew even from the coldest winters, as I sought to celebrate my son's spirit and cherish the love we had built. In time, whispers of forgiveness crept into my heart, not necessarily for her but for myself, a reminder that I should not lose sight of the goodness that still existed. I recognized that Jessica walked a separate path. Her decisions had led her astray, and her chase of fleeting riches and the delusions of grandeur would ultimately be her demise. I held my head high, knowing that while I could not erase the pain, I had emerged stronger. Seasons changed, and with each passing moment, the garden flourished, mirroring the newfound bonds I forged with my family. I watched as new memories bloomed, not only ones of my son, but also filled with laughter and a deep appreciation for life's fleeting beauty. I found serenity in knowing I had stayed true to my convictions and that justice, not merely out of revenge but grounded in loyalty, had found me once more. Amid the beauty and tranquility of the garden, I realized that love outlasted betrayal. The ties we create bind us even when tested. Jessica's chapter closed firmly, exposing the end of her greed. I embraced my new beginning, a life anchored in love, a legacy to honor, and a commitment to those who truly mattered in my heart. I had learned how to not only rise from ashes, but to thrive within the blossoming comforts of friendship, forever vigil of the lessons learned. The dazzling delights life can still offer amid grief and turmoil. My name is Robert. I am 48 years old, and I live in a quaint little town in Oregon. Life had always been about dedication, hard work, and love, especially for my family, until the moment everything shifted and reshaped my understanding of loyalty and betrayal. It was during the wake after my son Stephen's sudden passing that his wife Jessica chose to reveal her true colors. Surrounded by the sorrow and mourning friends and family brought, I still managed to hold on to the hope that we could support one another through the grief. After all, we had shared the joy of Stephen's life, a beautiful bond that ought to have remained anchored in love and respect. Yet there was Jessica, standing tall at the edge of it all, already mapping out her escape from the life we built together. The shock of her words during the funeral service echoed in my mind like a chilling taunt, "Pack your bags." Even as the tears streamed down my face, that phrase pierced through my heart with relentless cruelty. It was an insult, a cruel disarray of everything my son had fought for, and I felt the unraveling of my life right before my eyes. I could feel resentment growing within me, a potent cocktail of anger and sorrow. But the worst part was the realization that Jessica showed not only a lack of regard for my grief, but also for her own loss. Her cold demeanor was a stark contrast to the warmth Stephen had infused in our lives, and now all I could focus on was the destruction of our once happy existence. I clenched my fists, choosing silence over reaction, knowing I needed to think and act strategically. The days turned into a blur of numbness as I shifted between grief and indignation. Each encounter with Jessica uncovered more of her insensitivity. She would dismiss our shared memories as if they belonged to a life she was happy to leave behind. I analyzed her every move, and it became clear she believed the house, the home we labored to create, was a trivial detail in her future plans. My determination fanned the flames of quiet vengeance as I began to plot my course of action, one that would not only secure my rights but would also expose her for who she truly was. I gathered every document related to our shared assets as if they were pieces of armor: wills, property deeds, bank statements, anything that could fortify my position. Enlisting a lawyer became my first step into regaining the power she had so casually wielded. Each meeting empowered me, but also highlighted how blind Jessica was to her own arrogance. She thought my grief had paralyzed my capacity to fight for what was right. She had another thing coming. The moment I changed the ownership of the family home to ensure my name stood alone on the title was a profound shift. I felt alive and strong again. I replaced locks on the doors with careful precision, knowing full well that one day she might try to reclaim her place in the house that had once belonged to us. With each passing day, as I solidified my defenses, I let Jessica flaunt her plans for the future. "I will need to sell this house to create a life of my own," she would say, and I would respond with a quiet nod, all the while imagining the truths she would soon face. The time came when I would confront her arrogance publicly, during a family gathering organized in Stephen's honor. I intended for everyone to discover Jessica's true self. When the day arrived, the atmosphere was dense with grief, and yet charged with a tension I knew would surge to the surface. As I looked around at family members, I found the support and love that bound us together amidst the heartache. And then there she was, Jessica, arriving late and acting as if nothing had changed. As I prepared to speak, I could sense the nervous energy crackling in the room, each family member unaware of the storm just about to unfold. My heart beat steadily as I called for attention, my voice calm yet firm. "Jessica," I began, and the world around us dimmed into silence. "You have made your intentions clear, and now it is time for everyone to understand the truth behind your actions." The room brimmed with anxious curiosity. My family turned their attention to her, sensing the confrontation that was about to erupt. "I have sold the house," I announced, letting the words wash over us like a cold wave. "The transfer took place while you focused on your plans to abandon the life Stephen built." Everything fell still. Jessica's face turned whiter than the walls that surrounded us, astonishment plastered across her features. "No, you cannot be serious," she shrieked, stumbling through the realization like a deer caught in headlights. "I assure you I am," I said, enjoying the moment of clarity. Family members exchanged shocked glances as they spun to look from Jessica to me. The tension surged, a palpable response to my decree. "You thought I would allow you to tear apart what Stephen cherished, our memories." My unwavering tone shocked Jessica, and she began to stutter and lash out, her facade collapsing as I took a step closer. "This is not just about a house, Jessica," I continued, savoring the satisfaction of watching her unravel. "This is about the loyalty you tarnished, the sacred bonds you chose to dissolve the moment you decided to prioritize yourself over our family." With those final words hanging like a cloud of smoke, the entirety of her misplaced confidence vaporized. Jessica stumbled backward, anger morphing to despair as she retreated, yelling something incoherent as she slammed the door behind her. The walls seemed to exhale a collective sigh as everyone around me slowly processed the truth of what had just occurred. Among them stood my brother and sister, their faces still marked with disbelief, their expressions morphing as realization struck. "You did this, Robert," my brother whispered with pride, eyes filled with admiration, as I let a wave of relief wash over me. The immediate fallout from our confrontation was quick and powerful. Jessica's threats of legal action fell flat as our family rallied behind me, pouring their support into ensuring I was not alone in this battle. They had witnessed the unraveling of her deceitful nature during the gathering. She was no longer the perceived victim, but rather the architect of her own downfall. I watched her spiraling publicly, each miscalculated move sending her deeper into a pit of despair. Banks began to turn against her. Eviction notices piled up at her doorstep. With every ounce of drama she had attempted to unleash upon me, the universe returned the favor. The satisfaction I felt in those moments was a justice I had longed for, a revelation that mirrored the love Stephen had left when he departed this world. As days slipped by, I began to transcend the grief that had once consumed me. My son's memory ignited a light in the darkness. I devoted myself to revamping the house, not only as a space for healing, but also as a sanctuary for love shared among family. I spent long days working through old photographs and sharing heartwarming stories with those seeking solace in the legacy we built. Each retelling not only honored Stephen, but also inspired me to cultivate a fresh, vibrant future in a now untainted space. It was during one particularly peaceful afternoon, while I reorganized a few of Stephen's belongings, that I received a sudden message, a text from an unexpected acquaintance of Jessica's, dripping with gossip and deceit. Jessica was once again attempting to smear my name, and my heart sank at the revelation that she was still plotting her revenge. Doubt threatened to creep into my mind, but I refused to let it take hold. Instead, I shared the message with my brother Michael, the one person I knew would understand my need to rise again. "This is just a part of her failing game," I said, my voice steadied by the conviction standing behind it. "Together, we will expose her for who she truly is." Our conversations led to collaborative planning, fueled by a growing sense of purpose as we organized ways to publicly showcase her lies. I wanted those closest to Stephen to know the truth, how Jessica had betrayed him in death, how she had manipulated the love we all shared. I invited a few of his friends over for the upcoming weekend, creating an opportunity to honor Stephen's spirit while laying bare the facts surrounding Jessica's deceit. She would not have the last laugh. Her arrogance only evidenced her growing desperation, and I was determined to capitalize on this by ensuring her vulnerability was revealed. As the weekend approached, excitement buzzed with the anticipation of gatherings woven around memories of my son. Each detail became part of a larger tapestry. Laughter was necessary to counterbalance the weight of our shared grief. I envisioned filling the home with light, turning the very space Jessica thought she could control into a beacon of love and remembrance. On that day, as guests began to arrive and joy filtered through the halls, my heart pounded with a mix of hope and trepidation. I kept an eye on the door, suspecting Jessica might show up, seeking to hijack what she believed belonged to her. As the evening unfolded with stories flowing freely and laughter echoing around me, Jessica finally arrived. She sauntered in like a thundercloud, her demeanor attempting to feign nonchalance. I could feel the tension in the air as I graciously engaged with my guests, all too aware that Jessica was silently scrutinizing the warmth I had built, one she could never destroy. Her presence only fueled my determination. I would not allow her to dim the love radiating through our memories. When I finally gathered everyone's attention, I felt an exhilarating thrill, ready to lay my truth against the backdrop of the memories we shared. Holding a glass high, I beckoned everyone closer. "Friends and family, thank you for joining in the celebration of Stephen," I began, drawing their gazes, locking eyes with Jessica, who visibly stiffened. "While we honor his legacy today, I would also like you to know about the truth surrounding this home as it pertains to our beloved Stephen." The atmosphere shifted as my family members exchanged glances, curiosity mingling with apprehension. Jessica's confidence faltered, revealing a hint of apprehension. "What are you talking about?" she muttered, her voice shaky, but I pressed on, my heart resolute. "This house, the very foundation of our memories, it belongs to me. I have taken necessary actions to ensure that Jessica's plans to destroy everything Stephen believed in will not come to fruition." As my words hung heavy in the air, the color drained from her face, the realization flooding in like ice water. "No, this cannot be happening," she exclaimed, her voice rising, struggling to regain her composure. I had shattered her illusion. "Jessica, this isn't just a matter of ownership," I continued, my voice holding steady while I was acutely aware of the growing sense of disbelief around me. "This is about loyalty to a man who fully trusted you to uphold the love we built. To stand here and act as if you are entitled to this space," I gestured toward the house, flooding with memories, "is not only an insult to me but to Stephen's legacy." It was a well-calculated blow, a strategy to ensure that her charade unraveled before the very eyes of those who knew her best. She stumbled back, shocked, as friends closed in around me, their empathy transforming into outrage on my behalf. "Robert, you think you can just toss me aside? I am his wife," she shouted vehemently, desperation permeating her tone, but the truth was much too strong to wipe away. "And you chose to betray that marriage." I fired back, knowing my family's eyes pierced through Jessica's bravado and crumbling illusion. "The very moment you dared to disregard the values Stephen had instilled in our family, you lost your claim to any semblance of a future here," I declared resolutely. A few guests whispered among themselves, piecing together the puzzle that Jessica had painted. Moments felt like an eternity as pure disbelief washed over Jessica's face and her friends drew back. A heavy silence settled, the room hanging in uncertainty as Jessica's world crumbled around her tears betraying the fierce facade she once held. I had no intent on reducing her to mere words. I wanted her to feel every ounce of shame for everything she had tried to build on the ashes of our love. And as she stood defeated before my family, her dignity stripped, reality struck her harder than any surface blow could. Days progressed, and I could not shake the burden of witnessing Jessica's humiliation unfold in the wake of our public showdown. The truth that had emerged from chaos began spreading through our community like wildfire. Tales of how Jessica tried to manipulate her way through grief to reinvent her future were revealed to be nothing more than a thin veil. Friends and family shared conversations that exposed her as a hollow shell of her former self, and slowly but surely, the echoes of my triumph weaved resilience into my heart. Jessica's arrogance couldn't shield her from the repercussions any longer. She had overplayed her hand, and in her wake was left the imprint of deep shame, a profound lesson that echoed through my life. My journey of reclaiming not just a house, but the sanctity of my son's memory became a rallying point, a genesis of purpose. Friends I had once known only in passing deepened their bonds with me, revealing how our shared efforts in honoring Stephen forged an unbreakable connection among us. I initiated a new chapter filled with joyful gatherings, celebrations of life, remembrance, and love that only grew deeper as I invested my efforts into our backyard memorial garden. The sun reflected off blooming flowers as I tended to each delicate petal that shaped a brighter future. The space evolved into a sacred ground where laughter overshadowed grief, where beautiful stories replaced the darkness that had threatened to consume us. Each stone laid, every plant nourished grew as a testament to love, offering comfort as I mourned the loss of my son while celebrating the legacy he had left behind. I looked out over the peaceful expanse and understood with a new clarity that every moment spent rebuilding this haven was an act of profound gratitude for all that we had shared. As the leaves slowly turned to gold and crimson with autumn, my heart found a deeper understanding of compassion, not just in myself but for Jessica. I had no malice toward her anymore. I recognized that she was a byproduct of her own insecurities. In the end, while her downfall brought me satisfaction, the true treasure lay in my acceptance of the past. Life became a continuous cycle of reinforcing the love we held for Stephen, who remained the cornerstone of our home. I embraced the rhythm of a new life, fostering connections both familiar and unfamiliar, welcoming people into our circle where traditions flourished. Friends brought their families to the garden to relish in the love we had built, laughter and sorrow twining together effortlessly. Even during moments of quiet reflection, I found solace knowing I had defended my son's memory with grace and determination, watching the tendrils of unity wrap tighter around our community. The holidays soon approached, and as I prepared to celebrate Stephen's birthday with a gathering at the garden, I reflected deeply on the journey I had taken and the lessons embedded within it. Each aspect of the garden symbolized the enduring spirit of family, a place where we could come together to remember, share, and cherish the moments we had all helped to create. And as the day drew near, I took a moment to acknowledge my own transformation and resilience, learning to balance my grief through the cultivation of love in every interaction. With each share of food and stories, I no longer felt the weight of betrayal. Instead, I found profound healing in shared tears, laughter, and the memories folks danced through joyfully. I absorbed the essence of letting go, not dismissing the hurt, but rather allowing it to enrich my understanding of life's complexities. My heart felt freed by the newfound knowledge that one cannot only rise from ashes but must thrive and cultivate gratitude for new beginnings. As the sun dipped low behind the horizon during the gathering, I looked around at our loved ones, smiling, chatting, and reminiscing, cherishing the newfound bonds that had emerged. Jessica, too, had faded from many conversations. Her existence was reduced to mere whispers, an echo of a life lost to greed and arrogance. In those moments, I understood that justice had not only been served, but I had forged a path for a deeper appreciation of love and loyalty. My name is Robert, And at last, I could finally say I had turned tragedy into triumph, founded on lessons only a journey marked by betrayal could teach. In the embrace of our lives intertwined, surrounded by laughter and joy, I stood as a testament to how love continues to flourish, a gentle reminder that even amidst darkest storms, resilience can light the way.